My name is Erin Moeller, and I am the Community Manager at TIBCO Software. I will be moderating today's session on the importance of open source community. The collaboration between strangers is one of open source's most remarkable aspects, and we need to strive to build a community where everyone feels welcome to participate. Joining me for today's discussions are leaders in the open source community, Amanda Brock, Devanshi Joshi, and Katie Gamanji, and who will share their stories about community and how it shaped their careers. Let's start with Amanda Brock. Amanda is the CEO of OpenUK, highly regarded author and keynote speaker with expertise in business, tech, legal, and policy. Amanda, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be the CEO of OpenUK?
Good morning, Erin. Just checking. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me along today. I've been CEO at OpenUK for about 18 months now. And prior to that, I spent 25 years as a lawyer. I spent 5 of those with a company that many of you will know, Canonical. And in my role there, I was general counsel and I set up and ran the legal team for the 5 years, which was an amazing opportunity because it brought me in touch with many of the communities. And what I discovered in that was not only a passion and a love for open source, but the importance of those communities and actually how welcome they are once they know you're there and once they engage with you. And I went on a big learning curve there of becoming part of those communities and I guess working on both the legal and policy side of open source. I got to engage with all sorts of different people. So that's probably enough for me for now, Erin, but thank you very much for organizing today.
Oh, absolutely, Amanda, and thank you for joining us. Next, we have Devanshi, who is a cloud and AI advocate, U.S. partner strategy at Microsoft, and a technology coach. Devanshi, welcome. And can you tell us about your background and the path you took to your current role as the cloud solution architect at Microsoft?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me today, Erin. I hope you guys can hear me well.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Awesome. So just rewinding a few years, I graduated at the top of my class in information technology engineering back in India. And right after was offered a job as a technology specialist at Microsoft India to work with customers across all the 3 regions of the country. And 2 years ago, Microsoft India leadership offered me the opportunity to join the Asia Pacific Global Black Belt team as their youngest technology specialist in the history of this team focused on advanced workloads. And this gave me that international exposure to the global market across borders, diversities, culture, which had me adopt technology through a new lens of geographical variance. And with this newfound focus for me in artificial intelligence and machine learning, open source software became integral to my professional life. And it was no longer that hobby which I continued to develop from my university. And it became that integral part for me where open source software communities was not just something that I adopted. I went on to pursue it within internal projects fiercely at Microsoft. And I also extended it with my Microsoft customers and partners to help them adopt them in their journey of product solutioning. As a result, I was also helping them channel my learnings and their learnings to widen their market base and grow out. And in that process, while I was venturing out in the Western world to have a wider impact, it led me straight to the Silicon Valley. And here I am today in San Francisco with Microsoft US to work with the partners and help them modernize solutions on Azure. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Katie. She's the ecosystem advocate at Cloud Native Computing Foundation and keynote speaker at numerous international conferences and meetups, active participant in the STEM development community. Katie, can you share your story on how you became the ecosystem advocate at CNCF?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I was actually listening to the other panelists, and I'm like, that's quite incredible. It's every single journey is quite different, and I think mine is it's quite unique. And I wouldn't say unique. It started with a degree in computer science. So this is when I moved to UK. And I've trained. I was aiming to be a software engineer, so doing programming pretty much my entire time. However, when I moved to my grad role, that's when I got introduced to infrastructure, to actually managing data centers and the deployment of applications, which is not something that is, well, at the time, it wasn't something which was shared as a subject within university. So when I got introduced to the infrastructure world from data centers, that's when more tools in the cloud native ecosystem got developed, such as Kubernetes was recently, at the time, it was recently open sourced and gaining momentum within organizations. And one thing that I was certain is that I would like to get my hands on that. So from a technical perspective, I moved into an area which is maybe more in the development phase. There's a lot of new opportunities for me to gain new skills. And this is how I moved to organizations such as Condé Nast and American Express, creating a platform which is solely based on Kubernetes cloud providers, anything open source which we can introduce within our platform. And recently, while I was doing all of this work with cloud native tools, I got more involved with the community. And being an end user at the time, so an end user is pretty much everyone who uses cloud native, but they don't sell it. So working for end user organizations, I got involved in the community from that perspective, but then I got involved more with the CNCF, or Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which pretty much gives an umbrella or a neutral ground for all of these projects to grow. And this is what I'm currently doing. I am the ecosystem advocate. I am leading the end user community, which is formed of more than 145 organizations. But at the same time, I am bridging the gap between these organizations and the projects within the ecosystem.
Great, thank you, Katie. And thank you for joining us on the panel today. So I think we touched lightly, but I think it'd be great to do a deeper dive about the projects that you worked on and how they've impacted you both personally and professionally. Katie?
So absolutely. So from the projects that I am heavily involved, as mentioned, it's about leading the end user community. But at the same time, for me, it's one of my passions within the technology is to identify new trends and to identify new projects that can benefit the ecosystem and move it, like actually help it move forward as well. So as mentioned, I am heavily working with Kubernetes at the moment. Anything which improves the developer experience, this is something that I've been heavily involved in the moment in different organizations. That's what I'm trying to do now. And pretty much looking into how can we provision infrastructure quickly, but more importantly, how can we get the feedback to the projects within the ecosystem. So it's a role at the moment that has varied kind of pathways and combinations and a lot of collaborations more than anything. But again, this is about to shape or provide a structure for the projects to grow further and to have this organic growth that we are celebrating within the open source community. And the most important thing is that all of this growth as well, it's like all of the work that the community does can be backed up by data. There's many surveys out there. We have the survey from the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which mentions that the cloud native grows. As well, we have the state of Kubernetes, which again, it's quite an important survey out there, mentioning that, again, there's many organizations using Kubernetes in production and stable. So the momentum is there. It's at this stage, pretty much what I'm doing is to build up on top of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Amanda, you mentioned something interesting. Your background's in legal, and then you transitioned over to being the CEO of OpenUK. Can you tell us a little bit about what the thought process was in how that happened?
Yeah, I probably should have transitioned to a role like this much earlier in my career, if I'm really honest. It takes, if you have a successful career, it takes a lot of nerve to swap from that successful career to doing something else. It's a big risk. So I probably did it a little later than I should have. And OpenUK, which is the UK's organisation for the business of open technology, so software, hardware, data, provided the ideal platform for me because it's an industry organization, it's an advocacy organization, it works a lot on policy. And maybe slightly strangely, what I find is that my legal skills from 25 years as a lawyer really make the job much, much easier for me. But it also allows me to do what I'm best at. And what I'm best at was never being a lawyer. It was sort of building that community piece, doing the work that makes change, you know, and being in that leadership role. And of course, in the legal functions I ran, I was the leader, but I was the leader of a very small team. Katie is actually one of our ambassadors, and with the ambassadors and the leadership team, our board and various work groups, we've got about 130 volunteers within OpenUK who one way or another contribute to making the organization achieve all the stuff we do. And that's been quite a big leadership lesson for me, because I've been learning how to manage volunteers, but also just to lead generally. And I think that it was a natural transition for me at a stage in my career, but there was an opportunity, so I took it. And I think for all of us, men and women, that's the critical thing. When you see an opportunity, don't say no, say yes, and then hope that you can fix it. Perhaps women are not as good at doing that generally, and we've been a little bit reticent. I think we tend to want to know we can do everything before we take a try or take a chance. And I've been a little bit more risk tolerant maybe in making this move than I was before in my legal roles. So it's really a fascinating thing. So if I explain to you, like in my last week, we've launched an awards, and Katie again is our head judge. But we launched that last week, and then we have funding to do a kids course over the summer, a summer camp. And we'll be doing a giveaway of 3,000 or 4,000 mini Moodle kits that allow the kids to do the course, focusing particularly on digitally excluded kids. And then we are working towards COP26 and sustainability and open source, where we'll be hosting an event, and hopefully, again, quite aligned with what Katie is saying there, we'll be working on a blueprint for a data center of the future. And we will be bringing lots of policy work that we've done around a report into that. So you can imagine that my role now is so varied. A lot of it is about engaging with people and helping them to come together to have influence. But it's been a really big transition for me.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Devanshi, you have an incredible story, because you started out in India. You graduated from college, and now you live in the Silicon Valley. Can you explain to us or tell everyone about your journey and how community has helped you succeed?
Absolutely. So, right, like I pointed out, I was working right from India, and back then as university projects, I was heavily involved with open source, and GitHub had just picked up. It was very popular back with university graduates. So as I transitioned into the Microsoft world, I came to the realization it did not really change so much for me. And it was surprising, because the reputation Microsoft had among budding contributors was that no, Microsoft was not that open source friendly. And the exposure I was bringing from that open source world into the Microsoft world was very well accepted. As a matter of fact, this whole concept of growth mindset was something that Microsoft was adopting worldwide. And that, I think, kind of helped the old school folks also to get onboarded with open source and adopt it across for customers and partners. So hang on here. What I'm trying to reference is that getting into a sales organization as a fresher graduate, where mostly there are seasoned professionals who have years of experience and are leading with those years of experience, who become little more stringent towards change and unlearning and relearning the new ways of life. And that whole cultural shift that Satya Nadella was driving worldwide kind of was very welcoming to me as a fresh graduate who was bringing in these fresh ways to collaborate across for outside as well as within Microsoft. So open source has been very close to heart, because as soon as I started working on customer projects, I was focused heavily on serverless as my platform for application design. And as a matter of fact, Azure Functions was always open source. So I found my voice, and I found people who were thinking my ideas for certain solutioning parts of it, as well as helping me out when I was stuck. And that was the best for me, because I was not stuck for only a product group to respond to me. I had a whole lot more support there. So I was very fortunate, and that was amazing that it actually helped me get connected to way more people and build a network, build that cross-country, cross-border relationships that eventually helped me get connected here in the Silicon Valley and have more opportunities to come and join here eventually. So that was awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Amanda, I had a quick follow-up question for you. The data center of the future sounds like a very ambitious and impactful goal. What are some of the key aspects that are part of the conversation, and how does open source support those plans?
Yeah, so what we're looking to build is a data center which will entirely run on open if we can. We're not looking to build the data center, we're looking to build a blueprint working with a group of partners in a consortium. And we are working with people like Open Compute, who understand the open hardware piece, IT Renew, who understand circular economy. We are looking at the software that would be open source that would run in a data center. And we're looking to evolve thinking around opening up the data. So we would build a blueprint, all of which would be open, or to the extent humanly possible at this stage in technology development. And we would run renewables, we would run alternative energy on it. We would look at every aspect of that being about sustainability. We create the blueprint, we'll share it. We hope to share it at COP26. We'll be hosting on the 11th of November a day, currently scheduled to be face-to-face, which is super, super exciting. We have a whole fringe venue to host the Open Technology and Sustainability Day, and the headline piece will be our blueprint. We're also waiting to hear if the Cabinet Office is able to give us a space in the main UN event for COP26. So it is super exciting, and lots of work going on in the background to pull that together. The best thing, I think, is that we will build something as a model which is sustainable, which is open, and which will be on a Creative Commons type model. So will be shareable for others to take and evolve. And hopefully we'll see some good traction with that.
Wow, that's exciting. Katie, we do have a question for you. What projects within CNCF do you find that are most exciting or upcoming?
That's a great question, mainly because KubeCon and Cloud NativeCon, which was last week, came with a lot of new technologies and a lot of new methodologies that the community are currently exploring. So maybe I should start with the fact that within the CNCF, all of the projects that are hosted in-house, they are having 3 levels attributed to them. So we have sandbox, incubation, and graduation. Usually the sandbox are all of the projects that are on an early stage, but they want to get more adoption from the community. So they are within this sandbox stage where they kind of get the feedback, and based on the feedback, they create their roadmap and feature development and so forth. Then you have the incubation projects, and all of these are having a lot of adoption, which it means it's stable in production. However, it still needs to gain the core momentum to identify it as a healthy project, which has a healthy contributor base, feature development rate, and so forth. And then you move to graduation, and all the projects within the graduation stage are projects like Kubernetes, Prometheus, Rook, Vitess, all of these big projects that have been stable in production. They have a very healthy community as well, which is what I mean by a healthy community, pretty much different organizations or different engineers from different organizations are contributing to the growth of the project. So I think what is exciting now is to see that one of the tools that is currently undergoing the graduation vote from the TOC, or the Technical Oversight Committee, is Argo CD, and Argo CD is one of the GitOps tools. And this is pretty much a methodology that has gained a lot of momentum, and it has been in the headlines for a while. But it's great to see again a confirmation that we have projects which are moving from incubation to the graduation stage. As well, in terms of the new technologies, one of the things that is quite exciting is the runtime of the future. What's going to happen after containers? So many of us might be familiar with the fact that we can run our application in a VM or virtual machine. I think that has been the default way. Of now, I think more than anything, we're moving to containers. And that's where we need a container orchestrator such as Kubernetes. And that's why this has been quite a popular tool. But there's questions, what's going to happen next? Can we shrink the footprint of a container within a cluster? Can we make it more scalable? Can we make it pretty much more dynamic, portable, and so forth? So one of the, this area currently is explored by or identified by WebAssembly. So this is something which will allow us to run applications, but again, with a shrinked footprint overall in the cluster. So quite early stages at the moment, but this is kind of, I think, the next stage, which is going to gain more momentum. And I think when it comes to enterprises, especially because these are some of our late adopters when it comes to open source, with enterprises, they require more assurance. And I think for these organizations, they are looking to see their peer companies adopting open source, but more importantly, openly saying that they're adopting open source, because surprisingly enough, not many organizations are comfortable with this kind of information to be out there in the public. So when it comes to enterprises, it's all about kind of getting that assurance, making sure again that the project is stable in production, and pretty much because they're basing their business on something which is open source. But I think again, in this stage, we see data from the surveys saying that we have more enterprises moving to cloud native. And some of the projects that are quite heavily involved here, of course, is Kubernetes. State as well is something which is very important. So how can you preserve state of an application if it's within a container? Security has been something which has been quite prominent as well. That's why we see a lot of resources currently being provisioned by TAG Security, which is a technical advisory group from within the CNCF umbrella. They have been delivering a white paper on security, and now they actually quite freshly delivered a new white paper on the delivery supply chains as well. So all of these areas that all the gaps we've seen maybe a couple of years ago, they are kind of filled now by all of these community contributions, by all of these white papers, working groups, tags, and so forth. So I think there are many trends out there, but more importantly, as you can see, it's one of the most dynamic areas. And this is why I'm actually in this area. It's definitely something new you have to learn every single day.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Thank you, Katie. Devanshi, we do have a question that just came in. It says, how does Microsoft? Oh, well, first, okay, so it's part of a two-part. What is the fastest growing open source area for Microsoft today?
Okay. So, okay. Well, the fastest growing is, I would say, Kubernetes, the CNCF that we have been part of, along with Linux. Those are our top two priorities. In fact, Brendan Burns leads our Kubernetes initiative, who is one of the founding members for Kubernetes. So it's going on full acceleration mode there, with lots of new features coming to release. And in fact, internally, we have these cloud native hack hours every month, where from the community, people come in to present the new ways in which they are leveraging the findings of CNCF as a foundation with Kubernetes, and share that across for us as architects to leverage and scale it out for additional partners and customers. So I feel we not just are doing it what the Microsoft would do in a Microsoft way or fashion, it's also in comparison to what, let's say, the AWS and the Googles of the world are doing in their own space. So with the top three clouds of today's public cloud market, it's very hard to keep up with it, if not beat each other at it. So yeah, so that's where we are. You said it was a two-part question, Erin, so.
Okay, well, you kind of touched on it lightly. It says, the question came in is, how does Microsoft find a balance between commercial and open source software?
Right. So what we have done is, over 20 years ago, we were all like, Linux is cancer. And under Satya's leadership, we are like Microsoft Heart Linux. So that transition was not just technology oriented, it was very cultural oriented. And I can say this for a fact, now that having worked across geographies within Microsoft and how we drive our business, that we are all heart open source in every domain of solutioning or architecting solutions within for products across any industry, or be it what compliance related, we will help you build through it as long as you are on board. So no longer when we walk into a conference room, or today virtually, is it that, oh, it's Microsoft on the table, so there'll be lots of licensing and only licensing to talk about. But I've just seen that change of mindset, and more discussions are more towards multi-cloud strategies and not just native Microsoft Azure stuff. So they want to run open source today on Azure, maybe tomorrow on an AWS or a GCP or a new cloud that comes up. So that's the way where all the industries and markets are headed. And we do that today. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Erin, can I pick up on something just there with what both
Yes.
of the others have been talking about? So it's really interesting stuff. And obviously Katie's talking about the engagement with organizations and getting them to start talking about their open source journey. Microsoft possibly has the most famous open source journey in history. They're very eloquent about explaining that journey and how they've gone from that position of open source being viewed as a cancer to Satya Nadella asking for them to be judged by their actions of today and the future, and looking at a journey where their cloud product Azure is critical to open and uses open and has to engage with open, where they talk about their customers specifically asking for open source, and of course the best developers wanting to use it. And I think that feeds beautifully into what Katie was saying about the cloud journey and how we're seeing this transitions with companies beginning to talk more openly about their cloud usage and their open source usage that sort of underlies that. What we've been seeing in our policy work at OpenUK, we produced a report in March, phase 1, State of Open, and we were able to demonstrate, working with the cloud native people, that we were the 5th biggest contributor in the world in terms of cloud native. Now, obviously the UK is quite a small country relative to many of those that were ahead of us, and we have a super large and effective community around this here. But we also showed that we were contributing at least 20% of the digital economy through open source, and we want to do more work in this. And literally, I think 5 minutes before I joined this call, we shared our survey for UK business. So I'm going to take this quick opportunity, if I can, to follow up on what Katie was saying. It can be done on an anonymous basis, but we are really keen for business to complete this survey. Whatever you do, if you're a caterer, if you're a retailer, if you're a tech company, because we're trying to draw out the utilization of open, whether at a cloud level or in your business operations, and to demonstrate just what scale that is in business. And it's a very simple survey that will take you less than 15 minutes and is very focused on the commercial aspects. And you probably want an engineering person to help you with it if you're a commercial person, but it's not a difficult thing to do purposely. So I really hope that some of the people listening will want to engage with that. And I'm sure that we'll be working with Devanshi and Katie and others as this moves forward on where that's taking business in the UK and other countries.
Thank you. Thank you. Amanda, Devanshi, and Katie, I want to thank you guys for joining the panel today. We're right at time, and I know that Jesus had some follow-up slides that he wanted to present right now. Jesus?
Excellent. Yes, thank you so much. And maybe Katie, can you help me with promoting the coming 3 slides here? Anything that you want to mention on
Absolutely.
your website,
Yeah.
as a kind of preferences or follow-ups? Yep.
Yeah, so I've been talking about the end user community, and this is the part of CNCF that I'm currently leading. So last week, which is very fresh, we completely redesigned, sorry, my voice is crumbling a bit. We've completely redesigned the end user community page, and this is the new version. And here you'll be able to see all of the great work that the end users are doing within the community. So you'll find case studies, you'll find videos, live streams, or the cloud native end user lounge, which is something that I've been launching as well. We're exploring the journey of different organizations of how they adopted cloud native. So please visit the page. You'll find all of these awesome work that our end user community does over here.
Perfect.
As
And
well,
there's also
this is
events,
as well.
right, on the page? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've mentioned the KubeCon Cloud Native Con, which was last week. Actually, it was on from May the 4th to 7th. So we're going to have another KubeCon Cloud Native Con in North America, which is going to be in October. So again, the CFPs are open till 23rd of May. So if you have any let's put any talks or anything that you would like to emphasize in cloud native, please do submit a CFP or join us as an attendee for KubeCon Cloud Native Con.
Excellent.
And this is me as well. And another thing, because I've mentioning that some of the we have data out there which pretty much bases all of our or confirms the movement and the momentum that cloud native has. And this is has been very recently published. It's by VMware Tanzu. They've created a report around the state of Kubernetes 2021. They published this this month, so definitely I would recommend to have a look. They are focusing mainly on 4 main areas, such as the momentum of Kubernetes, the transition towards security, or more emphasis on the security, different stakeholders that take part in making decisions when adopting Kubernetes and so forth. It's a really great survey, so do have a look and get your data out there as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Katie. Amanda? I think this is the main website, right? This would be the
that's the
portal.
awards. Yeah, so that's taking you through to our awards nominations. You will also, I don't know if you've got other links there, but you will see our upcoming events. Yep, so there are a number of events. I don't know what else you've got there. Our awards are open for nominations now for the next couple of weeks. There are 8 categories that you can nominate yourself and others, so long as they're based in UK. Katie will be leading a very worthy team of people to judge the entries. Last year we had 84 and we hope to get 100 this year. You can join our survey. All of these are on the main menu in that top right box if you click them. And also we hope that your children will enjoy the summer camp coming up very soon. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And Devanshi, I think this could be the best place to start to get questions answered.
Absolutely. And feel free to reach out across any of these communities. We are open source in some way or fashion across all our domains. And our product teams are right there to merge your contributions or help you accelerate your development today. So hit us up on any of these domains and we will be there to help you out.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as we transition to the next session, I just have a quick trivia question for the 3 of you. Let's see who of you can